Welcome to the Halligans and Half Wheel Podcast, presented by Box 1971, where we're changing the culture of the fire service one fireman at a time.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening from wherever you are in the world. This is the Halligans and Half Wheels Podcast, brought to you by Box 1971, where we're changing the culture of the fire service one fireman at a time. This episode comes to you from the Fueled by Milwaukee Tools studio. Milwaukee Tools, nothing but heavy duty. We are proud to be partnered with Karen Berger Cigars out of Esteli, Nicaragua. Today, I will be smoking the high-rated Connecticut from Cigar Journal, rated 93. It is an Ecuadorian shade-grown wrapper with binder and filler from our farm in Esteli, Nicaragua. Lots of flavor. Think of like a Coffee Mate-esque smoke when you smoke that. I'm joined today by an old salt dog, and you could tell that he's an old salt dog by the salt and pepper in his facial hair. Joined by Rob Hofelder. Rob, how are you, sir?
I'm doing wonderful today.
Well, that's great. You are smoking a Don Kiki.
Absolutely. 7x70 barber pole. It's my go-to to relax, makes me shut down because it takes a while to smoke.
Right.
So it just makes me shut down.
So what are you sipping on over there?
A little Axe and Oak. It's a little early in the morning, but kind of keeps things going.
You know what they say. You can't drink all day if you don't start in the morning.
That's right. State troopers get a little mad, but hey.
They can get upset all they want. So that cigar, that barber pole, is actually a new rendition of that cigar. But you like the way the 70 gauge feels in your hand? I mean, like
Is that a joke?
No, like I'm smoking a Lancero, right? So that's like packed full of flavor. You're smoking a lot of the wrapper. But some people don't like the way like a smaller cigar feels in their hands or makes them look. And you being, I guess we should talk about this. You're a certified tobacconist.
I am.
So you know a little bit about the tobacco game.
A little.
Yeah.
A little.
All right.
I make it work.
You make
it work.
Daddy makes it work.
I don't use it as much as I would like, but hey, it's different education. It's a different learning experience. I learned a lot more while taking the course and got a lot more information than what I had known before. So
Sure.
It makes smoking cigars more interesting.
Sure.
Still struggle with the flavors.
Yeah.
Obviously, I give my wife Rachel a hit of one, and she can tell me all the different flavors, and I'm like, "You're an ass." But
Do you tell her that?
I do sometimes.
Your wife's a trip.
But no, I love having that full flavor. That size is just
So you're not smoking flavored cigars. You're actually smoking premium long filler tobacco.
only.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of like bourbon.
Yes, I've stayed. I can honestly say I've never had a black and mild. I've never had a wood tip.
You ain't got none of them grape tip.
I don't. I did hit up a couple owls the other day. Literally, I think I hit one. No, on the way to work. But that's the closest thing I come to any gas station or vape store cigar. So stay away from them.
I actually had an owl fly into me in Wisconsin in the new truck. I mean, like first maiden voyage. Wham! I pulled over. No damage.
Do you just look up and be like, who?
Have you ever heard the joke that there was a guy with a small dick pretending to be an owl?
No.
And the person goes, who?
Who? That's why I said I don't know.
So you are a fireman, paramedic.
Yes.
Where'd you do your growing up at?
I grew up northeast Philadelphia.
Born and raised.
Yes, right outside of Philadelphia until I was 18.
On the playground is where you spent most of your days.
Yeah, it wasn't that close to Philadelphia, but the older we got, a couple friends of mine, we used to always, this is showing my age, we used to get on the SEPTA train, and that would be the Southeast Pennsylvania Transit Authority.
Okay.
So we used to jump on that and take it down into the city. My mom and dad probably would have killed me if they would have known that I was in South Philly or other places that are now nobody wants to go to. But yeah, we used to do that, and at nights we would take the train down to Front Street
Okay.
in Philly, where they would do drag racing at night. Of course, illegal, but we used to have a blast. And then, as long as we were home at a certain time, then we were good to go. So
Porch lights come on.
that's right.
All right. So, mom, dad, anybody in public service?
Mom used to be a dispatcher. She makes jokes that probably the reason I got into public safety and things like that is because I was born in the back of a police car.
Like, is that a true story?
Yes, it is. In front of Abington Memorial Hospital in Northeast Philadelphia. She went into labor while working, and I know, right? You can't make this up.
No.
And Dad was working. He was always a company man, wore a suit every day. But Mom was working for dispatch, and they both volunteered for the local rescue squad, and my dad was a volunteer fireman. My dad was the first in their area and district to actually get his accredited life-saving card from American Heart Association, which was back in the 70s. So
Okay.
he did that, and while growing up, it was the family that I knew. I had my family, had my grandparents, had my aunts and uncles, but I had a family that was closer, that was always what I call my uncles, still have them, that were the volunteers in the fire department.
Okay.
It was the guys that my dad and mom used to hang out with every Friday and Saturday night. It was either going over there or they came over to our house and, had the scanner going. There was always a scanner going with a speaker. And for my dad, there was an exterior antenna on the house. And, that way we could pick up all the calls all day long.
Did you have a red phone in your house?
We did not have a red phone in the house.
All right.
But just that experience, of course, everything was an open cab back then.
Right. Thank God.
Yes. Good times. Used to be in all the parades. I still have a stack of black and white pictures from newspapers of me being in the parades, me wearing my dad's gear, which was strictly rubber pants and a rubber coat. And
Hell yeah.
so that really got me into it, hearing the stories and hearing that closeness of the other people that were in there that are now some of my closest family.
So, safe to say you were born into it. You didn't have a chance to really do anything else.
No, I was born into, at least some sort of law enforcement. But yes, I was stuck in it. Didn't have cell phones back then, so there was several times on the weekends where Dad would call the house and tell Mom to bring me down there, and we'd load up in the wood paneled station wagon and
Hell yeah.
go down there, and I'd 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning in the summertime, rolling hose on the front apron of the firehouse, and thought it was the best thing in the world.
Yeah. Wouldn't trade growing up like that for nothing.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah. I vividly remember an old Sutphen open cab fire engine that was bungeed together, like around the back step because the door was broke. I vividly remember it was the right-handed, so it had been the officer's side
Right.
rear compartment.
Okay. It was
Like, I don't know what made me just think of that, but like when you say growing up, like that's where my mind goes.
right.
Is to that firehouse.
There was all. I follow them on Facebook, which has totally changed. They've all got red engines now, where they all had a lime green.
Ugh.
Yeah, it was ugly. It was hideous. But they had a aerial, like 3 pumpers. I don't even know. Sorry, engines.
Right.
You got to get back to
The pumper.
the pumper. I remember sitting in the back, riding on the tailboard in parades, and now that's highly frowned upon and can't do that anymore. Plus, there's really no tailboard on any engines anymore.
What did Zach Galifianakis say in the movie? It's frowned upon. It's like masturbating on an airplane.
Yes,
Yes.
only if people are watching.
Yeah. We tailboarded when we had the engine here on the road, the driveway.
Right. There was that.
Yeah, we did that. Everybody was, we got a video of it. Because guys were like, oh, we never tailboarded. I tailboarded for like 6 months. It was weird.
It is different.
Piece of rope around you. And
Yes.
yeah, It's
A piece of rope, not a harness, a rope.
yeah, a piece of rope.
Yes.
Yeah. No, it's a different world, man. It's kind of like Charleston, with Dr. Griffin. When he came in, they'd put sponges in their mouth and breathe through a sponge. And, that was in the early 2000s. And people were like, oh, it can't be that old. And you're like, no, Dick, it really
was.
This is legit how we did it, right? And now you don't even go into an unknown atmosphere without an SCBA on.
Right, or anywhere close, or gas meters, and everything is made better. Everything is safer, which I'm sure we'll get into it. It makes things more dangerous.
Well, and that's a very good point. That our gear, we partner with Firedex, and Firedex builds some great gear. It's lightweight. The numbers for TPP and THL are off the charts. And the biggest thing for us is the number one killer right now is cardiac issues, right? So if you can alleviate stress and weight, that's the easiest way to alleviate those conditions. You as a paramagician know that, right? So, and we're going to get into that too. So take me through, did you ever do the Explorer program or anything like that?
When I was growing up, obviously in the 70s and early 80s, there wasn't really an Explorer program or anything like that. You hung around. If you wanted to join, you had to be 18 for insurance, which really hasn't changed. But
Right.
No, and by the time I turned 18, my dad took another job and was transferred and brought us to North Carolina. So that kind of got me out of it, and I had to constantly live through my uncles calling and telling about calls they went on and structure fires they went on, and it was like I was like, I've got to change. This is, getting out of high school. I never went to college, so I went straight into working, and just
there's nothing wrong with that.
No, but it was just missing. There was something in my gut that was missing. Obviously, it wasn't food, but it was definitely there's something in your soul that's just missing, that's not there. Out of all my cousins and all the other kids that were our age growing up around the firehouse, I'm the only one. I'm the only one that ever really got into it. Everyone else went into business, went into something else, the corporate world, and I'm the only one that went into public service. It was just something that I felt like I needed to do. I did not feel that you got that satisfaction out of doing something. Whether it was, I cut grass on the side. It's perfect satisfaction. It's very quick. You cut grass. It looks great. 45 minutes, you leave.
Got to have those stripes.
That's right. I got to have the stripes. I always said that in my little business, I don't have an LLC for it or anything else, but I always say that I'm a line above everyone else. So, especially if you put stripes in something, it looks good. But went through high school, did odd jobs down here, had to do a senior year of high school down here. Went into basic law enforcement training, thought that would be okay. Worked in a prison for a little bit. And my very first volunteer spot was at a local place in Oxford, or in south of Oxford, but in Granville County. Learned a lot from the Rays.
You were down in the Creedmoor area.
I was.
All right.
And
the Richard Ray.
yes, and just learned a lot from him. Got some training there, but it was got married, moved away, moved towards Wake Forest. Got on Wake Forest, and that's where it blew up as a volunteer. Went into being paid, and
the great state of Wake.
With
the capital city of Raleigh-Delphia.
There you go.
They are little Philly. It's a different world. Humid valves and everything.
Yes.
So, first fire. Oh. Do you remember it?
I do. I was a orange bucket helmet, and they told me that I had to wait outside. And it was absolutely in Creedmoor. It was a trailer fire. I heard things from my dad about how structure fires go, but we didn't have trailers where I grew up. It was row homes, it was Cape Cods, it was things like that. So didn't know anything about mobile homes and how they burn. They wanted to take me in and couldn't find me. It's because there was a dog lover from way back. And I heard a dog barking and went around the side and was supposed to stand by the truck. Got my ass streaked very much after that because broke the side window, caused a ventilation issue, but at least I got the dog out. So there was all that. So, yes, that was my first. It was uneventful. Saved a life, but yeah, it was good. Wasn't what you thought, huh?
Well, I wasn't expecting that. Bobby Ray is a lot of folks don't know that he was prior military, and to this day he still keeps the flat top, and he
If you didn't know he was military by just the way he cut his hair, you would have thought he was highly devoted to something. So
he is very devoted to the fire service, and love that guy. Love going to eat with him in Creedmoor. We still do that a couple times a year, just get together and BS. But good humans, the Rays are, for sure. For sure. So what made you want to go into being a paramedic? Because that's not a goal that people just wake up with.
no, it is not. And now that I look back on it, it was probably a goal that I should have been like, no, stay in the fire service. Don't do it. When I was on Wake Forest, I actually went through little backstory on that. I was a volunteer for like 2 years.
Okay.
They decided they were going to have full-time paid staff. They only had like a driver and a officer back then, and went full-time paid staff. When they did that, I was in the first group. Was sitting in orientation, which was, this is the truck, this is, what you're supposed to do. Here's our paperwork. It was like 3 days of orientation. Second day of orientation was when 9/11 hit. We were all sitting there in orientation, and like everything stopped. So that was like watching them being like, we have to do something, and knowing how far away we were, and we couldn't do anything. Just putting us on alert for everything. Could it happen here? What's next? And everything else. But I always had the urge to actually be the one to make patient contact. If there was a car wreck, I was always the one to dive in the car first. I was, there trying to see collars and find out how the patients were doing. So that eventually got me into taking my EMT. And
you took it on a bubble Scantron, didn't you?
I did.
You filled it in with pencil.
I did. Yes, I did. And then had to wait a month and hope you passed. And unlike today, we actually found out what we needed to do more training on, what we didn't pass, what we did pass, which was educational. But now it's just like, nope, you passed, you failed, you have no clue, and go from there. But got out of the fire service because my first wife, God rest her soul. Oh wait, she's not dead. She took me to Rhode Island, took a job up there, and did what I did for family.
The Ocean State?
Yes, the Ocean State.
Okay, I didn't have that in my bingo card.
There you go. Lived up there for 13 months. This is where my hatred's gonna come out. 13 months.
Let's go Woosah.
It's Woosah's not.
Have you a sip of this? Yeah. This wonderful bourbon that you brought, Axe and Oak Distillery. The first steak is what this is called. It's called Cast Strength, and it is 118 proof. It is smooth, smooth, smooth. And this is bottle 939 of 1,000. Boy, I'll tell you what, you must really, really like us to bring some bourbon like this.
Yeah, it's. I call you my brother, but it's. If I had a real brother, I'd probably kill him and keep you. So there's that. I'll trade you. I'll trade your family for my sister. You probably wouldn't take her either, but so where were we?
Rhode Island.
Rhode Island.
13 months.
Yes, 13 months up there. Left the fire service after being there for 7 years. Had made engineer. Thought I was moving up. I was in my 20s late 20s, early 30s. Left there. It was the first job that I had that I absolutely loved and adored. Left there for family. Tried to get on up there. Of course, no certifications transferred over, and everything up there was paid across the board. There wasn't really volunteers or anything like that. Wound up working at a Harley dealership up there. And at 13 months, my wife at that time said, I don't want to be here anymore. I'm moving back home. Funny enough, she got laid off because 2 months earlier she stopped going to work and I didn't know it.
Oh shit!
Yes. So she got laid off.
Is this where you had your child?
Yeah. Well, she was born down here.
Okay. And you took her up there?
Yeah. She was only
Holy
like
shit.
14 months old.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Came back at 14 months because I had to move everything back and did all that, and went by the firehouse and was just like, hey, how's it going? Talked to my old captain, who I learned a great deal from. He just retired this past year, moved out towards Mount Airy and does his ham radio stuff and is absolutely loving it.
I mean,
There-
you're out there where Andy Griffith's from.
Right.
You're in Mayberry, bro.
How can you miss it?
Well,
right.
you're close to Pulliam's for hot dogs.
That's right. He talks about it. He does.
I love Pulliam's.
Yeah.
We should go to Winston this afternoon for Pulliam's.
Maybe not this afternoon.
I would do it, though.
Oh.
If you said the word, we'd be done.
We could do it Sunday. I work Sunday.
They close Sunday, Monday.
Well, we'll have to do it some other day.
That's all right. But Pulliam's it is.
That's absolutely
My treat.
okay.
Big spender.
You know what? That's fine. We'll still have a blast. We'll talk shit and have a good time the whole way there and the whole way back.
That's right. Sitting on the logs eating them.
That's right. And came back, talked to the guys at the firehouse, and my chief at that time said, "I wish you would have came back 3 weeks ago."
Ouch.
Because if I would have came back 3 weeks ago, I would have been able to come right back into the system, not have lost anything. And the joke was that we told your wife. Yeah, crickets. You're looking for a button. Yeah. Yeah. Soon after that, I started working where I currently do for a county and as a basic, and jumped into that. Went and took my intermediate. And before I finished my intermediate, got divorced from, this is going to be a good one, from all the mental abuse and all the mental anguish that I would never amount to anything, never be good enough.
Because you didn't go to college.
Because I did not go to college, correct. Right. And that no...
Which one of you was laid off?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, well, that's because work ethic, there is none. But I finally left because with the idea that I was not going to have my kid, I was not going to have anything, walked away with literally the clothes on my back. And was living in my sister's ex's rental trailer.
Holy shit.
Went through intermedium and got that and did that for a year, then got my medic, and the rest has been...
Not so much of a gravy train.
No. Well, it's a gravy train, but there was a leak, and the wolves were following very closely.
So you jump into medic school. Mm-hmm. How deep of the pool were you in for that? Because that's one thing that we get asked a lot when we're teaching somewhere is, man, everywhere requires us to be EMT. Should I just go ahead and get my paramedic?
If you're not going to be a paramedic, don't get your paramedic. It's a year. Everyone makes jokes. It's a year out of your life
that you're never going to get back.
That you will never get back, and it is truly and completely a year out of your life. It's
wow.
You have your ride time, you have hospital time, you have ride time with an FTO. Once you get cleared, it is a year or so out of your life, and that's just class. So I took it when it wasn't so bad. I wouldn't give it up now unless I absolutely had to, and the balls rolled in my favor that it was a perfect job and a perfect insurance.
Right.
Then fine. But,
right. Get you a good union job.
I grew up with them, so I realized that they are. There's a place. There is definitely a place for unions.
Yeah, there is, and that's a bad word down here. It's a bad word. Like, as soon as you talk about that.
It can get you fired.
Yeah. Yeah.
It most certainly can get you fired.
And the sad thing is all you're doing is trying to protect yourself.
That's it.
And
That's it.
Folks don't realize. I mean, unions are bad in the fact that they protect shitbags, but they're good in the fact that my take on this is just my personal take, that I always ask people. I had this conversation the other day while part of a process for a fire department. Would you want you rescuing you? Would you want that guy that is timid and can't have a conversation, can't deal with difficult conversations? Do you want that guy coming to rescue you? And the resounding answer from the chief and all the other people sitting at the table was hell no. And my question to them was, well, why not? Because if they're bold enough to do it, sit here and have a conversation without you here, where I'll just say, we don't like Rob because Rob's aggressive. We don't like Rob because Rob's outspoken. Did you ever stop and think that maybe Rob doesn't like you because you're weak? Did you ever stop to think that maybe Rob doesn't like you because you're a backstabber? Like, this is supposed to be a job about brotherhood.
It is. And it is, you've worked at different places. You know, the brotherhood is not the same 10 years ago as what it is now, or 15 years ago from 10 years ago. And it's not the same in a big city that it is a smaller metropolitan or a more rural department. I grew up with the brotherhood being, there's always those brothers around.
Yeah.
And I mean, I could call my uncles right now. And if I said, I have a problem, I'm coming up there, the bed would be made.
Sure.
And it's family, and I still consider them family. I drove up there when their family was sick and dropped everything, because that's what you're supposed to do.
Well, that's, Rick Lasky said it best, when you buy a new house, we help you move. When it's time to reshingle it, we help you put shingles on. When it's time to put the addition on, we help you put the addition on. But now the pendulum has swung in so many different facets of life, whether it be politics, finances, the job. Things have swung so far to one side that now it's my belief that the people that are in charge are the people that were beat up on as kids.
Yep.
And so now this is them exacting their revenge, maybe not in a conscious method, but they're like, well, I'm going to make all these rules. And y'all, some bitches that talk loud and cuss a lot and smoke cigars in the bay and, cause raucous. Y'all are
the problem.
Yeah, y'all are the problem.
Yep.
But I had a fire chief tell me one time, and I love this guy. He's still working part time. He retired, but he says, if I could just put you in a glass case and break you out when there's a fire, and keep you. And he's right though.
Yep.
I don't mind going and talking about pub ed and shit, but you do that for 3 weeks during October, and you're like, I'm done.
I had my uncle, both of my uncles live in upstate Pennsylvania, have rental properties. And
when you say upstate, you mean like the Poconos?
Yeah.
Okay.
Out that way, in between Poconos and State College.
Okay.
You don't shower out there with oh, that's a Penn State joke. Never mind. But
Pennsyltucky is what a lot of people call it.
They were talking to my mom about some renter issues that they had. The laws up there are crazy. You can't kick them out. Hadn't had rent and God knows how long, and we're losing a lot of money.
Right.
And my mom said, well, have you talked to Rob? Rob may have some ideas. And my one uncle told my mom, Rob is the guy that you call when you want shit done that nobody else is willing to do, and nobody wants to know what the outcome's going to be. Because it's probably not going to be good.
Well, and that's the thing. I asked in that same conversation, I said, well, is that person your cup of tea? And they said no. I said, well, what makes you think that you're his?
Right.
I don't have to be friends with you to work with you. I don't have to spend my off time. We don't have to go on trips together. We don't have to golf together. We don't have to go to Waffle House together. We don't have to be at each other's houses on our days off.
Nope.
But
we're here to do the job.
Yeah.
Do the job, get the job done to the best that we can, and
Right.
then go home.
Friends is a good byproduct.
Yes.
But that's all it is a byproduct.
Yep.
You know, there's plenty of people I've worked with. I'm just like, I can't wait till this shit's over. Come on, 7 a.m.
Yep. Or you have supervisors that tell you, you need to hang out. We need to have this camaraderie together. We need to have this family together. This shift is a family. That's this, that's that. No, I have work acquaintances.
Right.
Because unless you've been to my house, and we've had this conversation, unless you've been to my house, you're not really my friend.
Right.
And until you've met my wife, you are absolutely not my friend.
I've got her cell phone number, and I didn't even think about that.
Right?
Until you just said that. I was like,
well,
oh,
there
shit.
you go.
I could message his wife.
There you go.
But I guess the point of all that is that the paradigm has shifted so much. You know, I've heard other guys say that we used to have a trade and now we have a career, right? Like you used to be, you know, like it was a good job to be a plumber. It was a good job to be a welder. It was a good job to be a mechanic. It was a good job to be a fireman.
Mm-hmm.
And now we have taken everything and mashed it up and twisted it and contorted it. And somebody that's been on the podcast, Steve Lovett, Chief Lovett. He, good chief, right? Fireman's fire chief. He and I had an off the record conversation the other day about, you know, some stuff and how the job is changing and how it's, you know, and I brought up to him, I said, well, how are you guys dealing with this diversity? He said, we just want people to fucking apply.
That's going to be accountable.
Yeah. Like
it's no longer turned into, I think the word career anymore is gone. Nobody has a job that they consider a career. A career for me is something that you stay, you retire at. And let's be honest, the word retire is not in people's vocabulary anymore. People
can't afford to.
No, you job jump. My ex, I used to call her a career whore.
Okay.
Because let's go where the more money is.
Sure.
And if I start working someplace today, if I have a conversation with somebody in a week from now and they offer me more money, I just left. There's no accountability. There's no respect. It's a job. It is not a career. There's no loyalty. There's nothing else. Well, and I think that goes across the board, whether it's in public service or just regular jobs.
So here's an interesting point that just popped into my head. You're the senior guy.
Yes.
Yeah. So where I come from, the senior man runs the house. It's the captain's house.
Right.
But it's the senior man who handles all the stuff. The captain's there to make sure we get paid.
Correct.
So I see a lot of people going around the senior man, going around the captain, and straight to the chiefs.
Yes.
And it's almost like putting mom against dad.
Correct. And it's difficult when the chief has told everyone, go to this person. Oh, I'm going to use it. Go to the supervisor and bring your complaints to him because it's a structure. But then when people come to him, then we don't direct that person and tell them, hey, look, it's not a, talking to me is fine, but you need to bring your complaints. It's a chain of command. This is the mode that we're going to. This is the role that we're going to be going to as a full-time department or things like that. And you have to have structure. And these younger people, they don't understand structure. They don't, dare I say, they've been silver spoon fed most of their life, whether it's emotional, whether it's just their life and how they work with things. And society as a whole is dragging that down where there's no accountability for anybody. If you do something wrong, it's because, oh, well, you are confused about who you are. You don't really know what you want in life. You're young. You're impressionable. No, you're 30 years old. Stop living at my home. Stop living with mommy and daddy. It's time to get out. It's time to be responsible. It's time to be an adult.
That's very well said. And the thing that it astounds me is that we have allowed people to basically circumvent us as a job and circumvent us as, we just allow them to just deviate and just do what they want. And I will tell you two of the things that you've said scream toxic work environment to me, and I hate that word toxic. Everything's toxic these days, or caustic. But two things jump out at me. One, we're a family. Somebody says that, fucking run. Because just because you say it doesn't mean that it's true. And the second thing is that, I have an open door policy. Those two things right there are organization killers. And I was on TikTok for a while. I deleted TikTok. And I'll tell you why I did. There was a fire chief who every day would go live. He would be teaching his people. Now, his department is probably the size of this firehouse that we're in. Okay? It's not very big. And this guy's got his, on the center of his shirt, he's got all of his badges on a lanyard, like
a lanyard.
Yeah, on your shirt, right? Like the 511 shirt with the little tab underneath the third button. So, like, everything's here. Like, your name being fire chief's not enough, right? You showing up in the buggies, not enough, right? We got to have all these, like, extra little things, right? So he gets on there and he starts holding court. That's what I call it. He's holding a class, right? Yep. So he's going live during the class. And he would ask a question. He was asking about AARs, right? After action reviews. And he says, well, what do you think? That's right. You couldn't hear a fucking soul answer him. So is he sitting in a room pontificating to himself?
By himself, probably sitting at home.
To look the part, I at that point, I was like, Jesus Christ, I've got to find something better to do with my time.
Yep.
Like, I've got to, so I deleted the whole app because I was just like, if this is what the job has become, like making ourselves look like we're important instead of sharing information about the job. I mean, He was talking about how he's got stacks of after action reviews. First off, how busy can your department be? We're not talking like a notable department either. I had to get on the interwebs and look the shit up to see where they were at.
And it's probably some rural department. It's got a 10-year-old engine, and it's got a brush truck that's probably 20 years old. Either that, if it's not an old deuce and a half.
So I will tell you that there are 4,300 people that live in this town.
Oh, a major metropolitan, obviously. They probably have at least 2 Burger Kings.
Well, when I grew up, how we judged if a town was a town?
If they had a White Castle?
No, sir. That's a good call, though. Vegas is a town because it's got 2.
Oh, there you go.
One on Fremont and one on the Strip. But no, having a Dairy Queen. If you had a Dairy Queen, you were someplace.
That is true. Now it's a Dollar General.
Oh, those some bitches. They pop up inside of each other.
They do.
Jesus.
We're right across the street.
And no sprinklers.
No. Half of them don't have alarms. And don't even get me started on the staff. Don't even get me started.
I won't. You just wonder, like, how in the hell does this happen? But I'm not trying to disparage the guy. I mean, look, not everybody can have brand new equipment, right?
Absolutely.
Not everybody can have brand new, like, I just came back from Nicaragua. And so there's 187 firehouses in the entire country of Nicaragua. There's just under 1 million people in Esteli, Nicaragua. They have one Halligan in the entire city. One Halligan. They have to call for the Halligan.
This is where my jokes are going to be. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a third world country.
Right.
If they just hit it with enough water pressure, the building's going to collapse anyway. So
Well,
there's not really
you would
forcible
think that.
entry.
You would think that, but bars on every window, and it's concrete.
And probably no saws.
And there was like 100 foot of supply line, 3-inch. Yeah, I mean, it is a different world, right? And the guys are out there playing pool, and they're happy, and they're riding an old, probably 28, 29-year-old American LaFrance that you can't buy parts for no more.
And think it's the best thing in the world.
And
it's the best job in the world.
They were happy.
Mm-hmm.
They were happy. Like, to see them, like when I gave them a patch and a coin, like you'd have thought that their lives had changed.
You would have thought you dropped them a brand new engine that they can't even use.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and they were super nice people, and that we gained some Facebook followers out of the deal, right? But to see how they work 24, they work the 3-4 schedules, basically what they work, and so they're very happy people. But 187 firehouses in the country. Just so you know, when you drive 2.5 hours in one direction, you pass one firehouse.
The response time is ridiculous.
There's just some times that like motorcycles and the way people operate. So I learned this. They asked me if I wanted to drive. I said, hell no. The reason I didn't want to drive is because if somebody cuts across in front of you, they don't have accident reconstruction like we have here.
Right. It's your fault.
It's your fault, and you're the tourist.
Yep.
Right.
So it's automatically your fault.
And you look like you have money, so now it is definitely your fault.
Yep.
So if you kill someone, and it happens daily, they average 5 deaths per day on the one highway. 5. Okay? You have to pay to leave the country. You have to pay the family in order to leave. Otherwise, you are held against your will. It's just how they do business, right? And it's
because you're a tourist, so it doesn't
Correct.
matter. Whether
Correct.
you can afford that or not, you're going to have to pay.
Correct. You have to pay the family. Not the government, the family. I'll tell you something else.
Well, at least the family gets it.
It cost me $10 to enter the country as a tourist, right? You have to get a tourist card. It's a little piece of paper. Then...
Is it laminated?
Nope. I can show it to you. It's in my passport. It's the damnedest thing you've ever seen. So then you go through customs. This is the damnedest thing you've ever seen. So you get off the plane, and you come down this old rickety escalator. It's the only way down. Other that or an elevator. Third world country now.
Not getting on it.
And you know what I'm thinking.
Right.
Where's the fucking stairs?
Right, and Cherry Berry's not there, so I'm not getting on it.
Yeah. And so I was like, I've seen too many third world country videos where the escalators fall apart or the guy gets sucked in because the foot plate's not in correctly.
Right.
So against my will, I had to go down the whole time. Like I watched where I stepped when I got off just because I'm scared to death. We get into customs. It took us 2.5 hours to get through customs. So you get there. You have to pay your $10, American money. You can't pay local money. The Cordoba, you can't use that. You have to use American money, and it's $10. And so I pulled out 10 ones because I was wanting to be a dick. And I counted off 10 ones.
And they're still happy.
And they're still happy, right? But I thought I was giving it to the man, right? So I go to collect my baggage from baggage claim, right? So they see my boarding pass. They're like, okay, that's you. Okay, have a good day. So I think I'm on my way out. So I go around the corner, and there's a guy standing there with a fucking AK, and he's like, he just nods at me. So I nodded back. And then I see to get out, they have to go through your baggage one more time.
Because customs wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
Because what do you really bring into Nicaragua?
Well, truth be told, I brought some makeup and some candy. You're limited on what you can bring in.
Uh-huh.
So 90% of the workforce in the tobacco industry, the rollers and the bunchers, the teams,
Right.
are female. This business is propped up by females. And people don't understand that. They think it's a male-run industry. I got news for you, bro. It's 10 to 1.
Well, it used to be. It used to be a strictly male-run
Right.
business.
Now it's 10 to 1. It's 10 to 1. Karen's Farm and Factory is run by Miss Carmen. Miss Carmen has been there for 26 years. Thelma, who does the books, her sister, who does all of the overseeing everything, the office is run by females. And then Karen obviously owns it, right?
Right.
So then you look at the other places, and I can show you pictures like when you go to Oliva Tobacco, which is not to be confused with Oliva Cigar. Oliva Tobacco, you go in there, and there is just hundreds of people sorting women. There's a few men, but not many, right? So I go through this x-ray machine, and the guy looks at me and says, "Your bag to the right." Now, mind you, this is my opinion. Profiling works.
Oh,
They
of course.
profiled the shit out of me. They saw me with my leather backpack. They saw me with my suitcase.
Did you have your slippers on?
I did not.
Okay.
I flew in Cole Haans.
Okay. Thank God.
Dick. So,
The red slippers would have been
that was the
indicated.
longest 2.5-hour flight of my life.
Was it?
Yeah. Packed in there like sardines. Too much stimulation noise-wise. People just like talking.
Whenever I picture like going to a third world country, which I've never flown in, I picture it like the boats you saw when the people from Cuba were coming over.
Right.
Like people like hanging on the sides, hanging on the like, like the trains in India.
Well, we all had seats.
Right. So,
We all had seats.
but it's like there's people hanging on the wings. We're just trying to get there. We're going to be there in a minute. Hold on.
Yeah. No, it wasn't like that. But there were 5 flights that landed at once in Managua. So that's why customs took forever. Because, they didn't foresee that the third largest cigar festival in the world was coming to town.
They had no idea, right?
Right. No clue. So I go to customs, the secondary customs. She says, "Open your bag." I open my bag. And I'm speaking very little Spanish. As you know,
Right.
I speak very little Spanish, but I can get around. So, open up my suitcase. She's rifling through it. She comes across I bought one of those new Polaroid cameras. She comes across the cartridge in the box for the film. She asked me what it is, so I explained to her that it's a camera, and it's film. Please don't open it because it'll ruin the film.
Right.
And she says, I don't like it. You have to come back tomorrow. And I was like,
Tomorrow?
pardon me?
Because it's not going to be here tomorrow.
And she says, yeah, you have to come back tomorrow. Here's your property receipt. And I said, no, ma'am. I'm not leaving my property. There's nothing wrong with that. It's already been through I don't know how many security measures. No. Now, we're not even talking the camera. We're talking the box of film that is 4 inches wide by a half-inch tall.
Right. It's half the size of a cigarette bag. Yeah.
Right. Like, we're not talking huge. And so she looked at me and she says, $40. So I got shook down for $50 to go in the country. $50.
And they knew it was going to happen.
And they knew it was going to happen.
And how many people sit there and say, okay, I'll come back tomorrow? Or sit there and say, I'm not coming back, and just leave it.
It's a 2.5 hour ride at 80 kilometers an hour. I don't know how much that is, but I just know that Julio, our driver, he sticks and stabs, baby. If there's a chance to pass, he's passing. And it was 2.5 hours of hard driving to get to the airport. Because you got to go through the mountains and switchbacks. But here's the thing. Before the tobacco industry took off in the 90s, it took 7 hours to make that journey because the roads weren't paved.
I will say it was a dirt path.
Yeah. Now, I will tell you, we had hot water. We had good food. I got sick. 40 of us got sick. We were eating catered meals at one of the events, and I got sicker than a dog, and I lost a bunch of weight.
That's the best thing about being sick.
Right.
It's perfect weight loss.
I had zero desire. Like, I was scared to drink water. Like, I was drinking electrolytes.
That's probably what got it for you.
No. Bottled water only.
Yes.
We all ate chicken.
Okay.
We ate chicken out of the same tray. We all went up to get our meals out of the buffet together.
It's that Nicaraguan chicken.
I don't know.
It's different chicken.
But let me tell you, I will tell you this. The fruits and the vegetables, fucking amazing.
Well, it just came off the tree.
Correct. And then, like...
No preservatives, no nothing.
Yeah,
it just came off the tree.
There's nothing. And it is pure, clean food. Like, everybody wants to joke about it. We had Pizza Hut one day. There's a Pizza Hut and a Little Caesars there.
Stop.
So for the factory one day, I was like, hey, I'm going to buy everybody pizza. So we brought out all the bunching tables, and we put them in a big line, and we had pizza one day together.
And they're all like...
I had my first soda in 4 years.
This is great.
Yeah.
How'd that go?
Terrible. I had the jitters like a mofo. It was Roja, so it was like red cream soda. It's a Nicaraguan soda. It's pure cane sugar, right? So it's not high fructose. And I was feeling pretty good for a little while.
You were rapping like crazy.
I was. Listen, when you sit down and you start bunching and rolling cigars, it is so much fun because the people didn't look at me as a outsider.
Right.
You know,
they just looked at you as another worker.
Yeah. So like, I mean, we moved the factory for Karen. We got everything done. It was a lot of fun, man. We had a lot of fun, and I'm thankful for the experience. But by God, if I never go back, I'll be okay. But Mario, our police buddy.
Your escort?
No, Mario down in Miami.
Oh, okay.
He's the helicopter pilot. He wants to go to Cuba. So
I'll be game for that.
We're talking about fall.
Okay.
So you probably ought to get on that passport situation.
I've got a passport.
Okay. So
well, no, I actually have to redo it.
Yeah.
But
so Mario's family, he's the first generation American, and his aunt and everybody now has citizenship here. He lost his dad during COVID, so he feels like we had a very long conversation about this. He feels like he's losing his family heritage and story.
Got it.
And he hates communism. Hates Cuba for everything that has happened to the people in the past because his father and grandfather were political prisoners.
Okay.
So for him, he's very much proud to be an American.
Right.
But he's like, I think I need to go back. He's like, do you want to go? And I was like, well, I survived Nicaragua, the second lowest GDP in the world. Think about that. In the world.
In the world.
I think we'll be okay.
As long as you stay in the city, it's all right.
Yeah. So, I mean, you can rent a car down there, and they don't fuck with you too much. You just don't bring back Cuban cigars.
Right.
That's the biggest thing.
That's the problem.
But really? So, here's something. Let's talk about that. So, everybody says I only smoke Cubans. Do you know where a lot of Cuban tobacco comes from?
Nicaragua?
Nicaragua and Ecuador. Because the fields are so overworked and the soil has not been replenished that it's not yielding good tobacco.
In Cuba.
So and you know who owns 51% of Habanos SA, which Habanos SA is the national company for cigars in Cuba.
Right.
SA is just a way of saying incorporation in Spanish. The Chinese own it. 51%.
They own everything.
They own everything. They own everything. So if you take true Cuban tobacco in the bales, right? And you take it to the Dominican, you take it to Honduras, you take it to Ecuador, you take it to Haiti, you take it to Nicaragua. You leave it sit for 700 days, guess what it becomes?
It probably rots.
Nope. It becomes that country of origin. There are cigars right now on the shelf that have grown in Cuba but sat for 2 years.
In another country.
Became that country's
property.
Or that country's origin.
Right.
Rolled and sent out.
And it's a Cuban cigar.
Correct. Now, same thing applies when other countries send tobacco to Cuba.
Right.
So all these people say, I only smoke Cubans. You know, I love it when people, God love them, they love to bring me cigars, right? And they bring them to me in the glass case. And I'm like, nobody in the world does glass cases out of Cuba.
No.
It's just not their thing.
Nope.
But it's cool, man. Like, I appreciate the effort, and I always say thanks and humble and gracious, yada, yada, yada. But it is interesting to see the people that believe that that's the way things are.
I still have not mastered the recognizing all the details of the label, the
The box.
date, the box, and everything else. But it's because you very seldom see it. That actually proves that it's real. So it's...
Well, if I had any, I'd show you.
Well, yeah, me too. I'll go back home. And won't let them mold. They won't.
Yeah, that's a bad deal.
That hurt my
feelings. We had a mutual friend who somehow got so much humidity in his cigars that they all molded. And for those of you connoisseurs out there, that's a rough day, because there was probably $500 worth of cigars, $600.
Every bit of, and bless his heart, he's trying, he's learning. His wife, who is a great individual, just decided to buy him absolutely a electric humidor for Christmas, and great. Somebody wants to give me one, I'll work it and make sure it works first. But yeah, it's a shame when you see something like that happen. And
it's gut-wrenching. I mean, he sent me the text message, and I cried for him.
I saw it, and I'm sitting there because we've talked about it. I had a problem with my humidor.
Right. How'd that work out?
It's working very well. It's maintaining like 67%.
Perfect.
So, granted, all the cigars are still in gallon Ziploc bags with Humipacks, because I'm a little sketchy about putting them back in.
Well, let that sucker maintain for a month.
It's close to it.
Yeah.
So
just let that.
But I still have a bowl of distilled water in the bottom of it. So.
Well, that's the other thing is people don't realize, and I know we're jumping off topic of your career and your story, and we'll get back to that. The thing about taking care of cigars is that they smoke best around 65%. So if you are going to smoke a cigar, like you came in this morning and there was cigars laid out, they were laying out for about an hour and a half. Before I smoke anything from that country down there that we just talked about, that I leave it sit out for an hour and a half. I don't just take it out and fire it up, because they don't smoke properly. I don't know what it is, but I've noticed that. Okay. Like the cigar you're smoking right now sits in the aging room for 1 to 2 years and then comes out, if it's lucky. But sometimes they're pumped right out. So, you're going straight to work, like that box of Fatsos that you got there. I think those are the puddings. Those were wrapped, capped, banded, and cellophaned, all in my presence.
So less than 3 weeks ago.
Correct.
And now it's here, so
right,
they need to sit. And you were down there. I mean, obviously you had cigars down there.
Oh, we smoked fresh cigars every day.
Right. I mean,
every day. It's like
But the-
7, 8 a day.
but they're used to it there. They probably don't burn like anything here
No. And the other thing is it's a natural humidor there.
because of the environment.
Yeah,
and everything else.
you're in the mountains, right? So the humidity is ideal, and the factory conditions are correct, and there's humidity in the air, and
The temperature is probably the only thing that really has to be regulated because of the
Correct.
geographic area.
Correct. Yeah, that's truly the only thing. And I mean, the factory is climate controlled, so air conditioned and heat, but it doesn't get too awful cold there.
Right.
It's pretty mild the whole time because you're near the equator, right? So, hey, real quick before we jump back into your career, I got to talk about some of the people that partner with us. Firehooks Unlimited. Do not be fooled by intimidators. Box 1971 is an authorized trainer and distributor of Firehooks Unlimited. Captain Farrell had to raise his prices in order to keep doing business, but there is a ton of people in the marketplace that provide inferior tools, and it's always gimmicks and everything else. The one thing that will not change is the quality at Firehooks Unlimited. Firehouse Innovations Corporation, with over 2,700 doors in use worldwide, from law enforcement to fire service to EMS. The key to forcible entry is Firehouse Innovations Corporation. Akron Brass, flow meters, nozzles, and appliances. Akron Brass doesn't need catchy slogans. Old Pappy's Tool Lube. Don't be a fool, lube your tool. First in Leather. Use code BOX1971 for a discount of 10% on $50 or more. Again, that's BOX1971. That's Mikey's way of letting you know, or him know, that you came from Box 1971. Rock Rooster Boots. Every step matters. Be the cock of the walk. Rock out with your cock out. Rock out with Rock Roosters. If you use Box 1971 at checkoff, you save some money on that as well at checkout. Lastly, and not leastly, for this break, Thompson Multimedia. If you can imagine it, David Shooter Thompson can make it happen. Awards, trophies, graphics, decals, vehicle wraps, and more. Thompson Multimedia is the one-stop shop for those needs. So, Rob, you became a paramedic. You wanted to go work for a county service, so you did. You still fight fire. You're still fighting fire to this day. You're still a paramagician. You work tomorrow?
Sunday.
Sunday. Super Bowl Sunday.
Yeah.
All right. What base you at? What number?
6.
All right. Cool.
So.
All right. So, who you got in the Super Bowl?
I'm trying to think. You know me in sports. I think I'm pulling for the Sixers this time.
The Sixers, the Philly 76ers.
You know
You got
me.
the Chiefs and the 49ers, bro. You were
Right,
close.
Right.
The Niners.
I've seen a lot on both of them, and I am so sick and tired of hearing about TS and all of her fans, and I'm probably going to pull for the Chiefs, one way or the other.
So, one thing about us is firemen. We have a hard line about where we stand on things. I was talking to one of our instructors today, and I said, what's funny about this whole Taylor Swift situation? Now, Big John's wife, she's a Swiftie.
Oh, I'm sure.
She will save up every dollar to fly to Nashville or wherever to go see a show. Like, I will bet my ass that she goes to Indy when she goes. Like, I bet on it. But her whole discography is about choosing the wrong man. And people want to take political advice from her. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I want to talk about, is that people are going to take advice from somebody whose music and discography is about picking the wrong man.
Well, the wrong man on several things.
A lot of fronts.
Yeah.
So, what do you like most about being a paramedic?
Well, I just hit my 16-year mark. Started my 16 year. So, and yes, I am a senior person. I am the senior. I'm with the top 4th person in the county for years of service in the county, and the top person on the truck. Everybody else is an officer. So I still love being able to help somebody no matter what their request is in their time of need. It's just trying to either talk to them or provide medication for them, or just providing a service that they feel is absolutely their worst day of their life, which most times it's not. But but just relaxing them, communicating with them, talking to them, educating them, and it's just being able to help them when most people are not. It falls back. Most people still think this is a job. Excuse me.
Oh,
And
you're
it's
fine.
a career. And the difference in a career is the passion and the heart. And, I've had tons of rough calls, but you have other people that talk about their calls and it's like, oh, whatever. It's just, and they say it's just a job.
Right.
You're not going to provide the appropriate care and compassion for somebody. And, that's why it comes down to, I have to call my supervisor to make sure I can take him to this hospital. I have to do this to make sure that I can move. It's ridiculous. It's all about, for me, it is all about the career and helping people and providing some sort of security mentally or physically for somebody that can't.
It's well stated. That's well stated because it's. I think we have a lot of people in the job that, both in the fire service as well as, sit on a lot of interview panels, a lot of processes, and you hear the one question interview: "Why do you want to work here?" "I want to help people." Sometimes helping people is folding the laundry,
Yep.
carrying in the groceries. Sometimes it's helping them off the toilet when they're soiled
Yep.
and helping them have some form of dignity. Those are the things that are not taught in probie school.
No.
You can't teach compassion.
Or common sense.
No. But unbeknownst to common belief, you cannot teach common
Yes.
sense.
I've never seen a school. There is no college course at any tech school, any vocational school, any state-run establishment. Does Yale have a common sense course?
I don't think so.
I mean,
I don't
any of the
think so.
Ivy League schools. I mean, it may be an elective. It's an elective because nobody takes it. So there's that.
So just so you know, I know we said we weren't going to talk about her. Taylor Swift has her own course at Harvard.
What's it called?
The evolution of Taylor Swift.
I didn't know if it was picking the wrong man or.
No, like seriously, like it is. It's a real thing.
And let me guess.
Inside Harvard's class on Taylor Swift.
I can't.
It's a new English class. Taylor Swift and Her World is the brainchild of Professor Stephanie Burt, a Harvard and Yale alum.
The questions, the comments.
So many questions.
Yeah, but it's one of those questions. My therapist told me yesterday. He said some questions you already know have no answer, so stop asking the question.
It's kind of like the movie Sling Blade. I don't understand the words.
Or when he's sitting there and the guy says, "I just don't understand why it doesn't run." He goes, "I ain't got no gas."
Right. I've tried everything. Have you tried gas? It's like people that rebuild saws and don't know how to rebuild them and then make them start.
Well, hey, you fix them. You don't have to clean them. That's not part of rebuilding the saw. But you take it all apart, put it all back together. Don't run it and put it back on the truck. I think that's the goal. That's
I
what
think
we do.
my favorite part's when the chain's backwards.
Well, it eventually stays on, but trust me, it will fly off.
Creates a lot of friction.
It does. And when it wraps around your leg, that's not fun either.
Yeah, that's definitely not fun. Then you get a visit from the OSHA inspector saying, "Why weren't you wearing your chaps?"
Well, it doesn't really matter because it was on backwards anyway. So technically, it's really not going to cut you. So.
Allegedly. Dull knives will cut you, though.
Yeah, it will if you push hard enough.
Yeah, if you push hard enough. So, as a young person getting into this job, what advice are you giving them when they come to you? When they come to your rig and you're with them for 24 hours and they say, "Rob, I just love this job. I know I'm brand new. What can I do to be like you?" What are you telling them?
Most times I'm laughing and I say leave.
There's the door. Run.
There's the door. No, I ask them. I typically ask them what is their goal. What is your goal in life? outside of being an EMS or anything else? What is your goal in life? Well, I want to have this, I want to have that. If it breaks down to any kind of material items, one, you're in the wrong business. Anyone that wants to help people as a job, besides doctors, it's the wrong business. You're not going to make a killing of money. I knew that when I got into it, but you still expect to get by. You shouldn't have to work 3 or 4 jobs, which all of us do. In any fire department, any EMS, most of us all have multiple jobs. But it is about the compassion. If you take someone who is hurt, and I always use the older people. If you have a little old lady who's sitting there and has fallen, and you've been to her 5 times and she keeps falling, she keeps doing this, she keeps calling you at all odd times of the night, you have to think outside the box. This is not because she has fallen. There's a good chance it's because she's lonely. She doesn't have any family. And, sometimes you just have to take that 5 or 10 minutes to sit with her, talk to her, let her know that things are going to be okay. Tomorrow's another day. Listen to her about her complaining about her dog or her cat. And the whole time you're annoyed. But if you do not have that compassion for somebody or that want to be able to do the best, then you're in the wrong line. It's a waste of time. If you're not willing to get in there, jump in, get dirty, and push those boundaries. We got all this new gear so that we can get into vehicles when there's a car wreck. Nobody uses them. Nobody does it. Nobody wants to. Because I might get hurt. I'm not getting in that car. What happens if I get stuck? What happens if something happens? Well, obviously you're already in the wrong line of business. Because you have the patient who's hurt, who needs to feel secure, who needs to feel safe in an unsafe environment. And if you're not willing to get in there, look them in the eye and tell them it's going to be okay, you're in the wrong line.
Right. Well, that's that's an interesting point that you bring up. That we do a good job of talking about it. We do a terrible job of acting on it.
Absolutely.
And the one thing that I'm a big football guy. Woody Hayes said years ago.
Is he from Ohio State?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I figured.
He's like the patron saint.
Okay, I just put 2 and 2 together.
He said there's one thing in your life that you should avoid, and that's apathy. Avoid it like the plague. And so when I think about the bell going off, I think about we're on their time. They've already bought and paid for us, right? They paid for the service. We're supposed to be sitting on go.
Right.
So when the bell drops, you need to be gone.
Absolutely.
There's no, oh, well, it's this or it's bullshit. You know how many fire alarms I pulled up on that were like booming?
Yep.
And you talk about a sinking feeling when you look across the rig and your guy that's with you is not dressed and you're sitting there ready to go, right? You've got your tool, your tick, your SCBA on, you got your hood on, you're getting ready to put your helmet on as you get out.
And you're driving.
Yeah.
You're the one who's driving. You have all the equipment.
Except my pack. Yeah.
And you're waiting for the guy on the other side to put his pants on.
Right. Because they're slow.
Right.
They don't care.
Or you're on the bus waiting. You're not even supposed to be driving. And I had to stop and get something to drink first. I had to do this first. I had to do that first. I had to take my Crocs off so I can put my boots on.
I will say that. I do wear, I'm a little bougie bitch.
I know.
I wear my Birkenstocks. But,
I know.
But I'm quick about it.
I have seen your ass run across the parking lot, and we beat the people to the truck that are sitting in the station. So
we've also that was with a pre-alert.
That absolutely was.
We beat the dispatch.
We did. And the 2 guys that were sitting inside the station. Yes,
correct.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Again, it comes back to wanting to do this job.
Yes.
And, that's the hardest thing for me to swallow is people that are paycheck firemen.
Yep.
God rest his soul, Kevin Scanlon, who taught for us for a number of years. He was a chief officer in New Jersey, was a fire commissioner in New Jersey, and then became a fire chief in West Virginia after retiring, then retired to Clayton with his family. And then he dropped dead of a heart attack in his driveway. We all got to go say goodbye to him at least at Big Wake. But he would always say, that the worst thing is paycheck firemen. And too many people right now confuse qualified with experience.
Yes, absolutely.
And just because you have a piece of paper that says you're able to doesn't mean that you can or should. And that is the hard pill to swallow. I walked into a firehouse the other day, and I happened to know this one lad, I'll say. I have to be very careful not to name any names because it's very hard not to talk about it. But this individual, during a training evolution that we were conducting, could not shut off a hydrant. This person is a career individual. So this individual has now met the threshold, in air quotes, to instruct, and now instructs for the state. So the first thing he did was go out and get a instructor front and put it on top of his locker. And then he put "Keep the Promise," the old sticker that, the top finder stickers, remember those in the window?
Yep.
They got that says "Keep the Promise" with the guy. I've got one upstairs. And then the other helmet front is the young man that passed in Columbia, South Carolina, Irmo. We still don't know what happened at that fire, right? But he never met that kid, doesn't know anything about him, probably hasn't researched what he can. He just saw that he died, and I'm going to raise some money for him, which is a good cause, right? Like raising money and doing the right thing. However, this individual, probably I would not trust to change the oil in my car. And now he's going to be teaching firemen how to be firemen, but can't shut off a hydrant. And it wasn't like he was like making a mistake. Like he legit was trying to turn the bail the wrong way and couldn't get it to go and thought the hydrant was froze.
So instead of using common sense, I recognize this isn't working.
Right.
Let me try something different. Hey, let's go the other direction.
I don't know. There's a fucking arrow on top of the hydrant. We all make mistakes.
We do, but it's how you adapt to that mistake, or when you're on a scene, whether it's fire, EMS, law enforcement, anything in life, you can either choose to hit that wall and choose to back up, go around, or sit there and hope to God somebody comes by and tells you what to do.
Well, it's like, you can't have an answer for everything. You can't. Like, there's so many variables of what we face in the world. If there's an elevator rescue, I want Mike Dragonetti there from Stamford, Connecticut.
Okay.
He was a local one mechanic. He founded Dragon Rescue Management, is the world's leading and foremost person on elevator rescue. Okay? He drove the engine, just retired in Stamford. But he's the man, right? And if there's a car wreck where we've got a complex job, I want Toot Lee from Marshville.
Okay.
All right. Beaver Lane is the name of his fire department. He works for MES as Hearst rep.
Okay.
He owns Premier Extrication. If there's something about engine work to be done, I want Richard Ray.
Right.
Right? Because God rest his soul, Andy Fredericks is gone. So that's who I want, right? And if there is a hazmat situation, Don Gross from the city of Durham is a pretty smart mofo. I want him.
Right.
Right?
You want to be trained by the best at their...
Correct.
And not just the best because they have paperwork that says, I've been to 50 classes.
Right.
I always fall back on, I can get paper signed. Hell, I can print off stuff offline. It says I'm, a certified tank operator.
I'm a certified preacher. I don't know if you knew that. I'm
I
ordained.
Yes, I know.
You know very well.
I know Reverend.
You were there.
I know Reverend. Stop.
It was a joke, and I did it, and now I'm an ordained minister.
Yeah. So we have to watch our tone now. So he's going to send us all to the hot box. But no, it's just it falls back on some of the guys that I knew, growing up. Like, they didn't have classes then.
Right.
They did, but it was very minute classes. How do you open up a door? Well, you use weight.
Right. Leverage.
And
yeah.
you beat the door down till you get inside. And they had other ways of training, and that's how they did things. You went to a junkyard and you cut cars apart. That's how you learned how to do it. And most, 100-pound, the, in quotes, jaws of life, back in the day.
The old Gen 1s.
Right. They worked. They were great.
Right.
Granted, you needed 3 days off afterwards from carrying it, but
And a hernia surgery.
right? And the guys who did stuff, the guys who have done it their whole entire life, I if I'm going to do training and I'm going to do training on traffic and traffic control and things like that, I'm probably going to go to someplace in Fairfax. It's not going to be in Fuquay.
Right.
It's just that's what they do.
Right.
That's what they have to know how to do. So they have mastered it for the best, what works for them and their environment. Is it going to be best for everything? No, but it's taking those experiences and being able to use it and adjust it for your area and your.
And that's the point I was trying to illustrate is that if I'm going to talk about high-rise firefighting tactics, I'm going to talk to, not anybody here.
No.
Right? Like the problem is we don't have access to those people. Those are people from all over the United States and all over North Carolina, right? Mm. And I have had the privilege of running jobs with Richard Ray, and pretty seamless, right? But the rest of those people, you just admire. Like I've taken classes from each one of those individuals that I just mentioned because they are the best at their job.
Yep.
And you don't see those people touting themselves and boasting about themselves. Those are all humble people that just want to just do their jobs. And if you have to put instructor in front of your name on Facebook,
yep,
then all is lost, in my opinion, on credibility. And I've said it before, I'll say it again, this whole tactical thermal imaging, we don't have tactical Haligans, we just have Haligans, and it's a tool in the toolbox, and use the doggone thing and be done with it. And you should know how to use it, but we shouldn't be devoting 16 hours, 30 hours in a class to a simple tool. You should be able to articulate in 30 minutes what that tool is going to do and the limitations of it, and then show said limitations and go on with it.
Absolutely.
And that's just one person's opinion, but I will say that that's the 9 that teach for us. That is our total opinion. That's how we feel about it. But what I was trying to say is that we all bring strengths to the table. The Dragon Eddies of the world, the John Normans of the world, the John Salkas of the world, the Rick Laskys of the world. They all bring something to the table. Everybody brings something to the table, and I want to get your take on this. I had a fire chief once tell me that there is a place for everyone here.
Absolutely. I agree. From the most experienced person, they have a different mindset when you pull up to a house or a car wreck, or from the time the tones drop, what you're going into. You're already spinning in your head what you're going to. You have the person who just got out of class.
Right.
Especially being a medic. When I went through medic school, yes, we learned a bunch of stuff. It was a year long. We learned all this great stuff. But the training they do now is the most cutting edge stuff, supposedly. So if I'm on a call, the partner that I've had, she's great.
Right.
She takes tests horribly. I'm going to call her out.
Sure.
And, she can't take a test. But when I'm on calls with her and I'm not sure about something, yes, go to the protocol book. That's what we're supposed to do.
Right.
But when you're sitting there with a patient and you're looking through a book, it doesn't look good. So
right.
I look at my partner. Hey, what are you thinking about this? I know you're not a medic. You took the class. Can't pass the test. Okay, great. But you just went through the class. What are you thinking on this? Getting that inexperienced idea, that inexperienced opinion, it has its place. And taking somebody who has no experience whatsoever, never been on a truck before,
right?
Especially in the fire service, you take that cadet, you take that explorer. Hey, this is what we're pulling up on. What are you thinking? You're going to get a totally different opinion, and it may be wrong because he's unexperienced.
Right.
But some of the ideas he has or she has may be just like, oh my God, I have all this experience. I wasn't even thinking past that.
Right.
And it's just being able, I think, everyone says like the best partner for a paramedic is a basic.
Right.
It's the one that makes them through. It's the one that gets them through all the crap, everything else, because they're thinking on a different level, and it just helps.
What's the old adage? Paramedics save lives, EMTs save paramedics.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I'll give you one. other day, part of a process in a state further north than here. Just after noon, the bell goes off for a structure fire. Chief looks at me and says, "You want to go?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So we get on the rig. Off-duty assistant chief pulls in. So there's 4 of us on the engine. We tear out. We're second due. So we've got water supply, right? So the chief and I, the assistant chief and I, are in the back seat. And he looks at me. We never said a word the whole time en route. Not one fucking word. We're listening to the radio. This guy, he's built like a brick shit house. One of the nicest individuals you meet. We get ready to throw the air brake. And I looked at him, and we were listening to the radio traffic, and I could hear that they were chasing fire in the attic. Kitchen fire extended up, right? So I'm listening to this. I'm wearing somebody's gear that doesn't fit me. I'm wearing a plastic helmet with no front. But everything's in date, right? So I'm like, let's ride. So I go to the back of the engine, go to the ladder compartment, and I before I got out, I just made a hook motion, like I'm going to grab a hook.
Right.
You've got a tick. They've already got lines in place. You know, so we dropped off for water supply, and we took walking up the street. We get there. We see the IC in the front yard. We give him 2 fingers. He knows who we are. We go inside. And there was not a conversation about where we needed to pull ceiling, what we needed to do to chase fire, anything. The guys inside, we just teamed up with them, started working seamlessly. Because the engine was getting their ass beat, right? Because they were a little exhausted.
Right.
I think it was an 8-minute ride. So, but none of those people stopped and said, "Hey, you're from a different agency. Hey, we don't know who you are."
Right. This is how we're going to do this.
Yeah.
This is, you need to follow us. You need to do this.
Right.
You need to do that.
It was seamless work, right? Like we just come in, and you and I have worked calls together where I've come in and you guys have been doing stuff, and we just kind of pitter patter, right? Like but you can't teach that.
No.
That is an experience-based thing.
Absolutely.
And that's where I'm coming back to with this whole experience versus qualified. You know, we're fixing to take off in the next 6 months. We teach 2 classes a month, right? So we're fixing to be busy.
Right.
And we look at it like we try not to say the same things over and over, but we end up repeating ourselves a lot.
Right. Well, I mean, if it works, it works. But I mean,
right.
Technology on certain things, you know, forcible entry doors, you know, technology with doors has not changed a whole lot. Different materials, different locks.
The magnetic locks, the only thing that's changed everything.
Yep.
If you can't go through the lock, you know, then we got a problem in 2024. We've got a problem.
Yeah.
If you don't know how to go through the lock and you can't communicate how to go through the lock, you know, you don't know how to spin the dial, we got problems.
Right.
And to be able to resecure the building afterwards, it just...
Well, and that's the key thing with anything. It just... we've had this discussion before. You know, it's not just going in and fixing the problem right now. It is fixing what is going on in the aftermath. It is, you know, it's not just salvage and overhaul, but it's securing the building. It's securing the residents. If you go to a car wreck, me and you have been on the same one, you know, got my butt streaked because we did not go back in service.
Right.
You know, the 2 kids died in a car wreck, both of them ejected, but the chief of the fire department was the kid's teacher.
Right.
Now you have other patients that are not the patients.
Right.
So you have to secure that. You have to check in with them. You have to make sure they're okay. You have to secure the house after you've forced entry and it's, you know, not a great area and all the windows are open.
Right.
You don't want their property being, you know, stolen or rummaged through by people because you didn't you didn't do your job. Do the fullest that you can do it.
I think that's one thing that's lost in part of our trade is you're supposed to be a property conservation expert.
That's what the whole job is.
And, you know, people like I look at, I was in a northern state. We were delivering a class. And 4 days before we got there, they had their annual working fire. I'll call it that. Nice people, good people. Hell, they're probably going to listen to this, but they already heard it from me. There were 47 windows in the house. Do you know how many windows were intact?
Oh, Jesus. None.
I counted every fucking window. 47 windows. The fire was contained to the Charlie Delta corner. Pretty good. I mean, now that whole area there was gone.
Right.
But they stopped it. They went in through the front door and stopped it.
Great.
But you can tell the second story in the Alpha Bravo corner that didn't need to have anything other than a door shut.
Had broken windows.
Had broken windows all over the bed. No smoke damage upstairs. The wind was in their favor that day. It was blowing to the northwest. Or, I'm sorry, the northeast. So you look at it. You know, one of our instructors was a part of a fire where the fire was literally venting out two ends of the house on the Bravo and the Delta side. Venting. Actively burning its ass off. Do you know what they did on the first floor? The big picture windows.
Gone.
And guess what happened to that first floor? Gone.
Yep.
It had all the air it needed, the right mixture, and off to the races it went.
Yep.
And we are not teaching that because operations, we've gotten away from, and we talk about this a lot, you and I do, off this subject and off this forum, but the FDNY, specific jobs dictate specific outcomes.
Absolutely.
And when we don't have a truck company functioning as a truck company, you can be a truckless truck company, but the truck work still needs to happen.
Absolutely.
We shouldn't be venting peaked roofs.
No.
There's no business. We have no, I'll say it, we have no business in 2024 being on peaked roofs of residences.
Yep.
We just don't, because you can do so much more if you just cut the gable end. It's far more safer.
Yep. And it's probably already got vents in it.
Correct.
It's
So
already going to vent itself.
yeah,
If it gets that far.
we don't have to reinvent the wheel, but I think that that it is again, we don't look at our tactics because, well, that works in the big city. And that's what I hear constantly is we're not the big city. And I'm like, well, that's cool. Does fire burn differently here than where you're at? I mean, you need to ask yourself that, whether you're in little bitty Podunk, Texas, or West Coast. I mean, we got some friends on the West Coast, and I ran into a guy. I got to tell you this. So Bruce and I went to a cigar event at Tap and Ash, and if you're ever in Las Vegas, go over by the Stratosphere. There is a beautiful cigar lounge called Tap and Ash. It is freaking phenomenal.
Not to be confused with a tap in anything that's
No.
in this state.
No.
Okay, good.
No. This lounge is family owned. They are salt of the earth people. They are building a bigger lounge. They're taking the building over next to them. But literally it's in the footprint of the Stratosphere. And talking cigars with a guy. And he's like, I got to ask you something. I said, what's up? He goes, fireman? I said, what gave it away? He goes, son, that mustache. And I started laughing. And I was like, well, tell me about you, bro. And he's like, well, I was in Baltimore City for 14 years and moved out here to be a paramedic in the ER, and I'm working on my RN. And, you know, I was like, well, let me ask you, you know, like, did you see some fire? And we actually knew some of the same people from Baltimore City.
Right.
And he was like, oh, you know him? Yeah. So next thing you know, he's texting the guy, and you know, we had a good conversation. But the one thing he told me, he's like, you know, these guys, they burn once or twice a year and their egos are inflated. You go to these busy houses, nobody talks about the jobs they go to. Nobody's screaming Job Town. Nobody's screaming, you know, we're this express, or, you know, they might have a ladder plate on the side of their truck that says, you know, that never late for a show in Times Square or something like that.
Right.
But they're not braggadocious. They're proud, but they're not prideful. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Well, they're proud, and they're proud because of where they're at and what they're part of, not necessarily the cause they go on.
Well,
People in bigger cities, you don't hear guys talking about in New York about 9/11. It's kind of like that thing you don't talk about. We all know it. All of us were part of it in some way or another. Some of us were a whole lot more in depth in it, and
right.
you don't hear law enforcement people talking about the shooter guy that was in Baltimore that was going around with his son, and You don't hear law enforcement talking about that. You don't hear people in Rhode Island talking about the nightclub fire. You don't hear, they don't. It's not, it falls back into those people that have never been in this line of work. And the first thing they always ask, oh, I bet you've seen some shit. Oh, I bet you've seen some horrible stuff. Tell me about the worst thing you've ever seen.
How do you approach that?
Oh, I throw it at them. I throw it right at them. And then they look at you like you have completely and totally destroyed their entire life. And I always go back. I do. I always go back to the same story. And I know the people to this day. I can say it because I feel confident that they are not podcast people. But they literally live right down the road. I have been doing their landscaping for their yard for the past 10 years. And it was a 15-week birth for her. And baby was born. And I thought it was stillborn. It was not. You could actually see the heart beating because it was see-through.
Holy shit.
And I was like, there is no equipment on any ambulance in any city in anywhere in the world that's got equipment to work on anything like that. You just know what it's going to be. But the thing and that's why I've been in therapy for one of those calls for so many years, but that was the start of it. And when you cut the cord and watch the baby tremor and then stop.
Fuck.
So yeah, I throw that one at them.
Fuck, you throw the baby out with the bathwater. Holy
Absolutely.
shit.
I throw it all at them, and then they look at you and they're like, well, what happened? Well, I killed that baby. I mean, it had to happen. The mother could have been in jeopardy. It's not going to be. That's what it's going to be. And, it's just, yeah, I'm not one of those, well, oh, yeah, I've seen some stuff. I mean, unless my wife's with me, then Rachel's like, well, he's just seen a bunch of shit. And then we turn around and walk away. One, because she doesn't want to see me go down that road.
Right.
And, all the screwed up shit that we have seen, all of us have seen. But I'm not going to take this to a mental health thing, but
no, you can.
We see shit and we deal with it in our own way, and people don't realize, oh, well, that happened like 10 years ago. Yeah, well, I get it, but I work in the town that I live in. I work in the county I live in.
Right.
So, I see these people all the time. Am I a glutton for punishment? Sure. Do I have to cut their yard every week because that's what they want, and been doing it and talked to the family all the time? No, but it's my way of being able to cope with it. And now they have 2 kids that are little hellions that run around their yard. The last time I drove past Main Road, and he's out there at 5 years old pissing in the front yard. That's great.
What I'm talking about.
It's great. I go past, blow the horn, and he laughs and waves and thinks it's the best thing in the world. But it's things like that, yeah, people sit there and tell you, and I'm just like, I'll throw it right at you. Like, you want to know? I'll throw it right at you. Yeah.
Sure.
And then if that one doesn't get it, or they sit there and be like, well, yeah, I had a 16-year-old girl that blew her head off in her mom and daddy's bed.
Shit.
With his shotgun. Females don't do that.
Right.
Let alone a 16-year-old girl. Yeah.
That one did.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That's the...
And then had to move out of the house.
That is the hard part, right, of this job, is everybody finds out. I never tell anybody what I've done for a living. I don't. They always ask me, what'd you do? What do you do? I work for the government. What did you do? I mitigated other people's mistakes. And it takes like 4 or 5 questions, and then by the time they get to the 4th question, they're usually disinterested in talking to me because
they don't want to talk about it.
Well, my face is. I mean, I'm not approachable. I mean, you look at me across the room. You've known me for years, so it's a little different. But to the average bear, I have been told even this week that I'm intimidating. Been told that twice this month.
I love it.
That I'm intimidating because I don't talk to a lot of people. I don't, but when I do speak, it's usually pretty loud.
Yep.
And
with no filter.
Yeah.
And that's what it is.
You're going to get both barrels, and that's just the way that it is. And people in today's society don't handle that very well.
Well, they can't.
It's true.
I don't believe they can at all. But it's just, I think the longer you've been a fireman, the longer you've been in EMS, we have our groups, we have our people that we go to, we have our very close knit set of friends, and we learn not to like people.
It's not that I don't like people. I love people. I just get tired of having to deal with everyone's bullshit. Because that's what we do. I mean, that's what we deal with. We deal with people's bullshit. We don't. We, Butters, my buddy Butters. He's been on this podcast.
New Year's. That was great.
He he talks about how we never see people at their best. We 1 minute could be dealing with the county commissioner having a heart attack, to a single mother having a welfare check done because we need to go check out a kid because the cops, to next minute we might be fighting a fire in a vacant home, to the next minute we are dealing with a suicide of someone prominent or someone that is not prominent, just somebody that is down and out on their luck, to the next minute we might be dealing with the guy under the underpass.
Yep.
And our job is nothing but highs and lows. And again, we don't do a very good job. We do a great job of saying, hey, we're talking about mental health. We're doing mental health, right? But like both of us, we know we talk to a professional because the burden is great. And there's nothing wrong with talking to a professional. And for anybody that has anything against that, just let me say this in capital letters for you. Fuck you. Because there is nothing wrong with talking to someone and venting and having a place where you can let things go and let things loose.
Absolutely.
And for me, it's like a safe haven because you don't want to bring that shit home. Your other partner, spouse, whatever you've got going on, you try to shield them, right? Like you don't want them to experience all that.
No, because they don't need to, and then we already see enough stuff, and it does. Don't get me wrong. Not everything is bad. Not everything is horrible. Not everything is that, and it's few and far between.
We do see some good shit.
We do. We see stuff that we look at each other and be like, I'm gonna tell you what, that tops it right there. I haven't seen no shit like that. But sure shit, the very next shift or a month later, you're gonna look back and remember that call. Yeah, well, let me tell you what happened yesterday.
Let me tell you about this shit.
Yeah, and yeah, it's just like our job is to protect people, help people, counsel people. At the same time, I think that we take those things and then we go home and we're still trying to protect our family. We're still trying to protect our spouse or a significant other, and which makes us crazy. Like we've talked about it. You don't have kids.
Right.
Having kids is horrible. Absolutely horrible. Like I would never do it again.
You love her.
I do. I love my daughter to death. I love my stepson to death. Would do anything for them. But growing up, being in EMS, being in the fire service, makes you a psychopath.
Right.
Like you were like, be careful. Make sure you do this. Make sure when you get into a car, you lock the doors. Make sure you do this. Make sure you always have your seatbelt on. When you pull up to a four-way, make sure you're doing this. Make sure you're doing that. It is, and they're like, fine, all right. And you hope that one day when it happens, that they're cautious, that they're careful, and until you get that call that one of them's been in a car wreck and you start running down, like you automatically go into job mode. Right. Are you okay? Where are you hurt? Where are you at? What is going on? And they're like, I'm fine. Shut up.
Stop talking.
Right. And, it's just, but you go into that and you're freaking out until you actually see them in person, and that's when you know it's okay. So we try to protect everybody, whether it's at work, whether it's at home. It's just, it is what it is.
And that's a very valid point that we try to protect. And these skills that we're talking about, you just didn't wake up one day and have them. This is time. And that's what I think the one thing that we've talked about is, we've talked about it many times on the bumper, having a cigar. That's kind of our thing, is that, that people don't understand that it takes time to get that experience. You when you got married, It was all roses for the first 2 weeks.
Yes.
And then
Oh yeah.
the facade starts to crack,
That's
and
right.
you start to notice things. And, you know, they say the honeymoon phase wears off. And people are absolutely correct. Those things all change, right? Your perspective changes. Things happen. Doesn't mean that you're a bad person. It just means things change.
Yep.
Right? And you have to work at a marriage. You have to work at a relationship. It's not something that just falls over and says, hey, I'm here. Like, you have to actually put in some work.
Absolutely.
And
it's, I know you've heard it. I've heard it. But all the jobs you could have in the world, some of them are hard, some of them are tough. Being married is the absolute, I thought, was the hardest job because you don't have an out. Like for me, I grew up, I didn't have an out.
Right.
Like people in my family, yes, some of them got divorced, but you just don't do it. So, first marriage, I was like, what did I do wrong? What did I not do right? And yeah, I did lots of shit wrong, and I still do, but I try to limit the things I do wrong and communicate more. And but being married is a full-time job all the time until you get to a point, and I'd like to think that me and my wife are at that point where we can look at each other and she's like, rough call? Yep. You want to talk about it? Nope. And she's like, okay, I'm going to work. If you want to, call me later. Or we'll talk about it tonight or something else. Or, you know, she's only done it twice and it's only been that bad. Do you need me to stay home?
That's pretty, it's pretty solid
Right.
for someone to say that.
Yeah.
Do you need me to stay home?
Yeah.
Sometimes you just need to be seen and heard.
Right. And sometimes you just need to be there and not talk.
Yeah. Just a presence.
Right.
Well, you know, I worked for an officer and I implemented it when I became a boss. Red flag days. So say you come in, you're not your best, right? I would just be like, hey, Rob, why don't you go to your bedroom for a while? It's a red flag day. We all understand. We all have off days. Here's my thing. I just need you 100% on calls.
That's it.
I'll personally go do your chores. I'll do your rig check. You know, now if it becomes an abuse problem,
Right.
now we got to talk about it,
Yeah.
right?
Because now you're not doing your job.
Right. But if you're just having a bad day, you and the old lady get into it, the bills are stacking up, whatever, and you just say, hey, I need this, you give it to them, right? Just be 100% on calls. That's all I ask. Go to your bedroom, listen to music, take a nap, make some phone calls, do whatever you got to do. But if the bell goes, I need you here.
Right.
And if not, if you can't meet me there, then I need you to go home. I'm not sending you home.
Right. I just need for you to do that because I need for you at your best when the time
Correct.
comes.
And you know what I found out? I've had to do it 4 times in 24 years. I learned this early on. 4 times. Once I did it. The other 3 times were actually me giving someone the pass.
Right.
After about 2 hours,
They come back and they're good.
person comes out of their bedroom, integrates right back into the work, no problems.
And the respect is there.
Absolutely.
The respect grows
but
exponentially.
That comes with having a crew that you can, one, trust
There's that.
and communicate with.
Yep. And that you have that bond with.
Yep.
If you have a crew and you don't know whether or not one of your guys or one of your crew is having an off day and they've been your crew for anything over 6 months or a year and you don't know it, you probably have a problem with your crew.
Correct. And one thing that I've learned as well as a boss is that when you walk into the room and the conversation changes,
There's a problem.
you are the problem.
Absolutely.
Speaking of not having problems, fire decks. You take care of them, we take care of you. That is Fire Decks' mantra. PFAS and PFOA free, on average 4 pounds lighter than a turnout gear. Do me a favor. Go pick you up a half gallon of milk and carry it around all day. Think about that when you put your turnout gear on. Anytime we can alleviate weight, that's a great thing. Matex hose out of Dothan, Alabama. GPS, gallons per second versus BTUs. No frills, no junk marketing, just water on the fire. That's Matex hose. Milwaukee Tools. Milwaukee Tools is a proud supplier of Box 1971, and we use their pack-out accessories for instruction. Milwaukee Tools, nothing but heavy duty. Seek Thermal Imagers, making the unseen seen economical, sleek. It has to be Seek. Crestar firefighting equipment. If you're tired of silly marketing or having to pay for overpriced equipment, look to Crestar. You know, the makers of Redhead couplings, which is on 90% of today's fire service hoses. And lastly but not least, the first, the best, the rest just imitate, that's Sterling Rope, the go-to choice for firefighter and bailout equipment. That's Sterling Rope. Rob,
Yep.
this has been an interesting journey, my man. We've talked about a lot. We've talked about cigars. We've talked about Nicaragua. We've talked about you. We've talked about relationships. We've talked about some firehouse culture. We've talked about the job as a whole. What do you think is a good way to close out this Halligan's and Half Wheels episode?
Oh, jeez. I'm trying to think of something else we could talk about. We could talk shit about people. That's always fun. We try not to do it a lot, but sometimes
they make it so easy.
They do. They really make it so easy that you have to look at yourself, and we have done it together. We just look at each other and shake our head because we know that if they knew the shit that we could say, it would not be good.
Well, let me ask you this: what's next for you? You're at the pinnacle of on the downward slide of a career, right?
Yeah.
So you're on the downward slope now. You've reached the middle point. You're vested. Everything's good. What's next for Rob? What's gonna entail for you? Not specifically, but just like a game plan.
Well, one, to finish my cigar lounge. That's for first and foremost.
How can I assist with that?
Do you have any vendors or anybody that does insulation?
No, but I know a couple firemen that do.
No, but it's just trying to get past a few things as far as the way management rolls and things that we've talked about, and with the current county, and looked at other places that have nothing to do with EMS, and it's tough. It's tough for people in any job that gets older, and you realize can't go out there and apply for things because they'd rather pick somebody that's half your age and train them for 20 years than take somebody who's experienced and you may have 10 or 15 years. But I think I'm going to keep on trudging it, keep on doing it. And I don't know. I have this little plan in my head where I'm just going to be an officer and take over the world, I guess.
Okay. That's it. I mean, change comes from the bottom.
It does.
Right? And, you know, people can put out directives, but you can put out directives all day, but if you don't have people to follow the directives.
Absolutely. You have to have support from your people. You have to have respect from your people.
You know, a leader without followers is just a man out with a walk. Or for a walk.
Yep. And he probably has that dog that's running all over the place that's not paying attention either.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing about puppy dogs is they like to shit in the corners.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
the problem is there's a lot of offices that have a lot of shit in the corners.
Well, and that's the thing is, you know, you got to control what you control. And I guess that's the one thing if you're listening to this is that, you know, this is not a downward podcast. This is not a, you know, we're trying to be as real as we can be, talk about the job and talk about someone's career and talk about life experiences. That's the thing we want you to take away. Is that you two can do whatever the hell you want. You just have to put your mind to it. If you want to go be a paramagician, then go be a paramagician. If you want to be a fire chief, God bless you. I don't know why you'd want to, but good luck. You know, the old adage goes, heavy is the crown. Mm-hmm. And the sooner people realize that it is not that much fun to be a fire chief, and it's a lot of burden, and it's a lot of headache, and you think about, can I go out tonight and have a beer with my wife at supper with my tacos on Taco Tuesday? You know, what crew's on? When you have to ask yourself that, and here's the other thing. You want to be at a point where the public doesn't realize that there's a difference between the level of service.
Between each shift, between each crew, between each department, it should flow flawlessly, but it does not.
We have been on calls together where people have told us that they were glad that we were there.
Yes.
Looked at both of us and said that.
been working EMS and had different fire departments that have paid crews and be like, thank God you're on this one.
Yeah.
And it's just, don't get me wrong, like every department, every job has their new people, their inexperienced people, their people that don't know, their people that don't care. And being on the fire service, being in EMS, being able to help the people that I have, I would not trade it for anything.
Right. The people. People ask me all the time, why do you go 3 hours to work somewhere? And my response is very simple. The people. There is I know guys that get on planes and go to a certain community in Prince George's County to ride the fire engine because they know they're going to catch fires. Kevin Merritt was one of them, and God rest his soul. But the guys will do anything if they love it. And there's nothing wrong with loving the craft. And if you don't love the craft and you're only in it because you're power hungry or you want to make a name for yourself, you should probably look elsewhere, because this is not, here's the deal. If we get jammed up tomorrow, you and I go to a job tomorrow, people are going to be sad if we get hurt or injured or killed. God forsake that ever happen. But they're going to replace us.
Probably within a day.
Yeah. And it's kind of like, here's something else that is off topic. I'll come back to that. Is that, I look around here in my firehouse at the history that we have of just not only this business, but the job as a whole. The Browder life-saving machine, the actual old Seagrave ladder, just things as I look around, I see, right? Embracing the history, knowing where we came from, knowing why we do what we do, whether it's the old Halligan behind me or the one laying over by the elevator prop. Those things all matter. Knowing where shit comes from, knowing the history as to why. And I'll give you an example. So we're walking into the Las Vegas Convention Center. And Bruce, who's the vice president of Karenberger Cigars, looks at me and he goes, "Hey, man, you ever been to Warwick, Rhode Island?" I thought it was funny you mentioned it. I wasn't going to talk about it, but I figured I should. I said, "Nope, never been. Read all about it." He goes, "I got to tell you, when I was in the Navy, my cousin was in a tribute band, and I had a week leave, and he asked me if I wanted to be a roadie for a week. So they went to the station nightclub, and this was a year before the fire. He says they had all these sparklers and pyrotechnics and shit going off close to the ceiling, and I asked myself, Jesus Christ, what's the way out of here?" And I kind of hung my head, and I said, "Yeah, the station nightclub." And he looks at me and goes, "You know that?" I said, "All too well." And he was like, "Holy shit." He was like, "What do you think?" And I said, "I don't have any opinion." That's the thing. Like when we read line of duty of death reports or we're, talking about the job, because then at that point I felt obligated to tell him why doors swing outward in occupied structures with, mass gathering people, and why doors have to remain unlocked during business hours. And, he was like, "Holy shit, really? That's a thing? I thought that's just the way things were done." I said, "No, it's not the way things are done, because..."
Without bars, without chains.
Correct. And they can't swing inward.
Yep.
Our Lady of Angels. Mm-hmm. Right? So, or, the Triangle Shirtwaist Fire.
Yes.
So, again, knowing your history, if you want to learn some history, read Crucible of Fire. That's a great book to start at. Learn where we come from. Learn where we... learn what this job entails. There is so much more than your local guy, your local firehouse, the guy that's been the chief for 30 years, there's so much more than this job. And the more you get out and the more you learn, the more you interact, the more you find out that this job, no matter where you go, is pretty much the same. And it's full of the same people. Mm-hmm. We just have different personalities.
Yep. Different
names, different looks. You may be tall, short, fat, I can be blue, I can be brown, I can be violet sky. You could be purple, I don't know. But you understand. Like, we could be a mixture of people, and that doesn't matter. We can have different relationships, different ethnicities, different religions, and that's okay. But the thing is, it's like, do we embrace each other? Because at the end of the day, I say this a lot, and you've heard me say it. We live in an Xbox society where
do.
people, if you're playing your game and you die, you get to push reset.
Yep.
We don't have a reset button. We are the last resort. There is nobody else to call.
That's it.
So if you're not taking your obligations seriously, then this is your challenge. This is your, I guess, like an altar call at church, like to start taking the job seriously. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with being in love with the job. There's nothing wrong with loving the job. There's nothing wrong with being a student of the job. And whether it be paramedicine, law enforcement, fireman, hazmatologist, whatever you want to call yourself, be the best. Why settle? That's the one thing, and I come back to Woody. Avoid apathy like the plague. And if you want to read a really good book, if you really want to geek out, get you the book You Win with People. That book right there will teach you so much about dealing with people and how to win. That people will follow you. People, that's the idea, is to get people to go with you. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, Rob, we've been at this just under 2 hours.
Uh-oh. That went by fast.
You're tired of sitting, I can tell you.
I'm getting old, but it went by a lot faster than what I thought it was going to.
Well, we covered an array of subjects, right? We almost smoked our cigars. Almost. So that's how you know that it's been almost 2 hours. Smoking that big 70 gauge, that Don Kiki.
It's good.
Brazilian Arapaca wrapper with Connecticut. It is a beautiful barber pole. And if you saw
so good
how they were rolled, I'll show you videos of it. It's absolutely amazing. So, do you got any words of wisdom to impart before we end this thing and send it to the can?
Let's see. You were talking about just being the best that you can. The one thing that I've always told my daughter and always told my stepson, and I call him my son, but
he's a good kid.
He is. He's a great kid. 27 years old. I don't really consider him a kid, but he's a great guy. I don't care what you want to do in life. I don't care if you want to be a basket weaver, and I've told my daughter this. I don't care if you want to be a crown maker, but you be the best damn crown maker you can be. And love it. If you have something you don't love, then stop. You need to get into something else. And if you have something that you love and you have something that you put every ounce of who you are into, it's okay. And it will be good. So just be the best you can. Do the best you can. Always remember that the job sucks sometimes, but it only takes that one person to look at you genuinely years later and say thank you.
Right. Well, I've got one for you. It's an unknown quote, and it says, "Your mind is a garden. Your thoughts are seeds. You can grow flowers or you can grow weeds." Ladies and gentlemen, this has been the Halligans and Half Wheels podcast, brought to you by Box 1971. Remember to train hard. We are all that they have.